We're here today to showcase the different methods of feeding ewes in containment. We'll go across 5 properties and each farmer will show you their methods and we'll go through the pros and cons of each. Ryan, do you want to just go through how many ewes you've got in here and why you've locked them up in containment?
We've got 500 twins and 360 singles this year. We've been containing for about 4 years now, I think, and the main reason is just to preserve ground cover and to monitor the ewe condition as much as we can. We used to trail feed grain in a communal trough and barley straw, but we went away from that. It was much more labour intensive. Just using high amounts of grain. We also had some animal health issues as well. So yeah, we've gone to using good quality silage, and it's worked really well the last few years. Get away without using much grain at all, just for a little bit for the twins at the end. The ewes love it and they do well on it. It doesn't take a great deal of labour. Feeding sort of every 2 or 3 days. You know, to put a few bales of silage out only takes 5 or 10 minutes, so very low maintenance in terms of labour as opposed to trail feeding grain. With our budget, we've mixed in some lower quality hay as well. So yeah, we're sort of feeding both simultaneously. So yeah, the hay's ad lib and the silage is, at this stage, it's every 3 days, but sometimes every 2 days. It's a fairly specific feed budget, but it's yeah, it works well, and we've got our yards really close by, so I can monitor condition closely and adjust things accordingly if we need to.
Here at Containment Station we run 3,000 ewes. We join 1,000 of them to Border Leicesters and 2,000 of them to Merinos as our breeders. We rely on containment, particularly pre-lambing, to make sure that the ewes maintain condition. Some of them might have to get a little bit of extra condition put on them pre-lambing. The main reason that we do it is to maintain ground cover out in the paddocks. So making sure that we have a green pick or feed available when they go out to lamb on the 1st of June. So we've set up 7 pens. If we need to, we can run the 3,000 ewes through the 7 pens if it's a really tough year. We rely on self-feeders. We already had them, so we figured it was a good idea just to put them straight back into the containment lot. Also use the self-feeders out in the paddock so they can be versatile, so it helps us to be able to use them in the pens and in the paddock as well. We also feed hay so that they're getting sort of barley out of the feeders and then they're getting a fibre component of hay in the pen as well. With the self-feeders, you have to be really careful with making sure that the ewes get not too much grain and enough grain. So you have to be very careful at maintaining how much grain actually comes out of the self-feeders. We do have ewes that can tend to get a little bit over fat, and you have to be really careful at managing them and potentially pulling them out if you notice that they're getting sort of over that 3.5 to score 4. My husband is very finicky about measuring how much they're consuming, and he does that sort of every 3 to 4 days just to make sure that they're getting the right amount and adjusting that. And you have to be very careful with the adjustment to make sure you're just doing it a little bit and slowly. So the benefit of using feeders for us is that the labour requirement is really low. We basically fill up 1 day a week and then the feeders are full for the whole week, and we don't have to do too much more apart from occasionally adding hay, probably every 3 to 4 days. And we like to have the flexibility that we don't have to be here monitoring it every single day. We can have weekends where we don't have to actually be here. So that's one real benefit, and that's why we stuck with the self-feeders.
William and Sandy Hearn. We're at Anguston here in the Barossa Valley in South Australia. We contain about 1,300 ewes at this property during the drier autumn, just to conserve a bit of pasture coverage. In 4 pens, I divide them up into twins and singles, usually skinny and fats, but sometimes that can be older and younger, and seems to go pretty well. The main reason we do it is to preserve that feed on offer, the cover in the paddocks, so that when we put them out to lamb, we've usually got some green pick for them, and the sheep are not running around and around for 5 to 6 weeks just chasing the green pick, basically not putting on any condition. They're losing condition if anything, and I can target feed exactly to what I want. So we have 4 pens that we're containment feeding here, and we feed out hay and grain every day into the troughing. Just because it's simple, it doesn't take us very long. The wife and I can do 4 pens. There's 2 here and 2 not far away from the shearing shed, but we can do that in an hour and a half comfortably, and that includes checking the water and putting out some ad-lib minerals. There is straw ad-lib in the pens, and we use a hay cart to trail the hay out in a nice little windrow, and that seems to work better than just have them roll it out, and I can manage the ration accordingly. They really only get to eat and not waste too much. One of the real positives with the communal trough system over the self-feeders is that they all come out together, they all get a ration. There are not too many gutses at all because they don't get the opportunity. I'm using 8-foot troughing, and there's about 10 ewes per trough, and I can judge their ration pretty well accordingly. We get better value out of the troughing. We can keep it cleaner because it's not in the pen where the ewes are at it all the time. They'll come out and have their ration and then go back in the pen. It's very low cost. It's galvanised steel made by a local manufacturer. We can see instantly if they're a bit shy or not well or needs attention, and we can separate that out. Don't look very good, so we can call in a consultant straight away. I can't see any negatives to do it, as in it's only an hour and a half.
My name's Tim Brown, Brown Farming Enterprises. We run 3,000 ewes and about 40 head of cattle. We set these pens up for just in leaner times when we need to put ewes in here to keep them going when there's no paddock feed. We can look after our paddocks and our hills a bit more. We set all this up with troughs at ease. You know, I can come in and out with my ute. I don't have to open and shut gates. I can do it all in 10 minutes. The ute's back in the shed and I'm back inside. So I can move on to the next job, but that's the reason we've done it like that. Make laneways, and when I'm moving them in and out, it's easier to move sheep in and out with gates that we can open and the sheep walk into the right pens. It's a simple and effective way how I've set it up, and it works well for me. We found the belt at local quarries around the Barossa, and I use second-hand posts, and I use tech screws to tackle the belt onto the posts. Every time I find a bit more belt, I keep extending my trough, so that's how we do it. So, retired work ute, and we put a jackie bin on the back. I've got augers in all my bins with my grain, and I just drive into under an auger and put half peas and then fill it up with barley, and it mixes itself as it comes through. Each paddock has a round bale of hay, and we feed out what the sheep need in each pen. Got marks on my feed out cart, I know that what I'm giving it to them. I have found that the less in there the better, and they've got more room, but that's the only disadvantage of a one-way trough.
G'day, I'm Paul Schutz, working with my brothers at Schutz Family Trust, Point Pass. We run 5,500 self-replacing merino ewes, and between Point Pass and Easter Borough. We put in feedlot containment pens in 2017 during some of the dry years, and at that stage we're containing 90% of our ewes. Since the years have gotten a bit better, we haven't been containing as many, but yeah, we still put a few in every year. In 2017 we bought a mixer, so we had to buy in standing crops of hay that year, canola and wheat, that had been frosted. And yeah, the way to utilise that canola hay, we found that worked really well, mixing total ration with a bit of straw, wheat and hay, canola and barley and lupins. Now the TMR, especially in containment here, has helped us get a ration together for all the ewes. Scan twins, singles and dries. The dries just get turned back out in the paddock or get sold. Yeah, these feeders that we've got here, my brother Mark, or Rat, he actually designed them. It's just more or less just to put a cover over some troughs. We've gone poly or rubber in the bottom for the actual trough part, and then just some off-cut steel and sheets of corrugated iron for a lid, just to keep the weather out when it does rain. Feeders we got here, they're sort of modules of 8 metres, So the big pen will put up to 500 ewes in it with a 24 metre long trough, depending on where they're at with their gestation, but yeah, around 3 to 4 days worth of feed in them for 500 ewes. When the containment lot here is full, we've got about 3,500 ewes in here, and every 4 days you're probably looking at 4 to 5 hours worth of feeding time to do that amount of ewes, which is a little bit more time consuming than if you had pasture out in your paddock, but saved us a hell of a lot of travel time if you had them spread out like we used to do it. As far as positives go, like there's way outnumbers the negatives. Like the positives, just keep an extra cover on your ground, saving that for when they're lambing to let them back out on, and even just when it does rain, helps your pastures get going quicker in the autumn. Probably the only thing was just getting the ration fine-tuned over a couple of years just to get our lamb sizes. That's probably the only thing we struggled with a little bit, was twins getting a little bit big sometimes, just because we were over a longer joining period too in those first dry years. But as far as the waste goes, like that's a huge bonus of having the total mixed ration. Like if we were to put whole bales of hay out in the pens, you could waste 25 to 30% of your hay, whereas now it's probably 95% of it's getting eaten in the mix. So. But yeah, the mixer was between 20 and 30,000. We bought that second hand, which I think over the last 5 years has probably paid for itself. Well, it's helped us out in the paddocks too when we do let the ewes out for lambing. Still put the mixed ration out, like so you can virtually lamb or nothing. It'd be nice if you had a bit of green pick for them, but in those couple of years we just didn't have green pick, and still putting the mixed ration out in the paddock, so that mix is getting used for sort of 6-7 months of the year when it is dry. So it's a bloody good tool.
Hopefully having a look at some of the methods of feeding in containment has helped you to identify what will work best in your enterprise. There is no one size fits all, but it's worth considering labour availability, infrastructure you might already have, or infrastructure that it's worth purchasing. Thanks to the Barossa Improved Grazing Group and the 5 Barossa properties that have allowed us to have a closer look at their systems, and also to the Future Drought Fund for the funding to complete this project.